Welcome to today's webinar, Polished Concrete Specification Basics. My name is Hilda and I will be your operator for today's call. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Later, we will conduct a question and answer session. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. And now I would like to turn the call over to Jennifer Fowler, Director of Technical Services and Strategic Accounts at Questmark Flooring. Jennifer, you may begin.
Thank you, Hildy. I appreciate everybody joining in today, and the intent of today's session is to familiarize you with this presentation on polished concrete that you will be then giving to architects and specifiers. And for me to emphasize certain talking points that will make this a useful presentation when you give it and you use those specific talking points. As we move forward, I just want to let you know that I'm going to, at the end of each slide, give you a why I'm talking about something if I feel it's important. Polished concrete specification basics. All of that is written in Division 3, which is concrete. Polished concrete finishing has a division called 033543, and polished concrete has become the go-to for most retail and many industrial, governmental, commercial properties, and is very fast growing. With polished concrete benefits, there are so many to choose from that as you see moving forward, you're going to be able to take advantage of. Polished concrete is 20 years young. It is the newcomer in hard surface flooring compared to other go-tos such as VCT, terrazzo, wood, and offers many advantages. You can see here that both hard surfaces and soft surfaces were used in the design. Concrete is a durable material. We all know that, but it's important for you to say that to architects so that they know that it's something that they can take advantage of. Polished concrete meets the incidental food contact criteria and therefore can be an excellent choice when designing food-related projects, i.e. restaurants, cafes, cafeterias, in schools. This particular project was a yoga studio, and there's a cafe inside it. Durability and design choices have increased the use of polished concrete in public institutional buildings such as schools, retail worship spaces, restaurants, and multi-unit residential. Many of these used to be terrazzo and are now being designed with polished concrete. In the past, our industry has made the mistake of trying to teach an architect specifier how to polish concrete step by step. This is not going to be discussed today. Rather, we will concentrate on teaching you how and why to specify polished concrete and leave the execution how to the craftsman. The American Society of Concrete Contractors is a nonprofit organization dedicated to enhancing the capabilities of concrete contractors and those who build with concrete. This is the reason that the CPAA, Concrete Polishing Association of America, decided last year in 2016 to become the Concrete Polishing Council and join with the American Society of Concrete Contractors. You will see here that there are many councils that make up the American Society of Concrete Contractors, safety being one of them. And the Safety Council is one that kind of bridges over all of us. We have a safety moment at every one of our board meetings, and it has really emphasized safety in concrete construction. We have members that are contractors, associate members, and professional members, all in this society working toward building better concrete. The coordination between these two organizations is something that we are very excited about, and we're interested in specifications that together will produce better polished concrete. Our executive board, this is something that is made up of all industry members that have had a passion for what they do in polished concrete and a commitment to make sure that polished concrete's quality and usage continues to grow. These are many of the originators of polished concrete industry, and their energy that they give this organization is truly a gift. Thank you very much to all of the participants. Again, we have contractors that have joined our organization worldwide. Polished concrete specification basics as a core of what we're going to learn today. This is the continuing education credits, and this will be something that is in each one of the AIA presentations that you give and is a required slide. Learning objectives is also a required slide and very important. And this is what basically our entire outline when doing this presentation must cover. So when talking to the architects, you're going to, this is really the meat and potatoes of what you're going to cover. So coordination is key. Reference in section 1 or that, and that needs to state that you're supposed to look at the cast in place, the polished concrete section, and the concrete to receive polished concrete. All three of these are things that the concrete contractor needs to look at and the concrete polisher needs to look at. And when the architect or specifier lists these referenced back and forth between these specifications, that will encourage contractors bidding this to make sure that they've read both sections. How to know the differences between what a salesman is telling you and what you are getting. That's another thing we'll talk about. Preparation and scheduling of a project and how exceptionally vital that is. Once the concrete's poured, the polisher can only deliver upon what we are given. And I'm going to show you that many, many times over, why it's so important what you put in the specification for the cast in place is then able to be executed to give you what you're looking for when we polish. And I'll emphasize words that are extremely important that are listed in the specification so that, again, the outcome is what is expected. Why use polished concrete? Polished concrete does not involve coating the surface. It is a breathable system. There is no surface film that will inhibit the moisture vapor emission rate. Therefore, there will be no mold, mildew, blistering, or peeling of the finished surface. When properly installed and maintained, polished concrete can last the life of the structure, avoiding the time and labor of installing subsequent flooring systems. By the way, I don't tend to read entire slides. That gets very boring. I think that really sums up the overview, and we will get into specifics as you see the slides move forward. Specifying the concrete. As I said, we're going to be talking about how we coordinate the 033000 cast in place with the 033543 polished concrete section. We're going to define polished concrete. We're going to choose terminology to achieve a specific performance appearance, and we're going to have them understand and emphasize the importance of the initial grinding step in the specification. Instructing the owner on the project sequencing and how that will affect the final outcome. By the way, that was a project in Seattle, Washington, the Chihuly Glass Museum, and I'll talk a little bit about that moving forward. So these are some of the considerations that we're going to be speaking about moving forward. The mixed design, regular or lightweight concrete, slab on grade or elevated concrete, levelness or flatness that is required, and the curing process. This is a article that was written by the ASCC, and it was published in the construction specifier. And we do this often, and it is something that is very helpful that we try to educate the industry as a whole. Variables abound, mixed design and finishing suggestions. So we have mixed design, temperature, humidity, wind, enclosed versus open job site, finisher qualifications and expertise, quality of equipment, knowledge of methods, timing, curing, protection, age of slab. Variables will go on and on and on. It's just important to understand that when we specify specific and put words into our documents, if they are actually read by the polisher and read by the concrete contractor, expectations can be met, because there are so many variables. If we don't do that, expecting something and getting something can be two different whole experiences. So floor flatness. How does this matter? First off, floor flatness is measured within the first 24 hours of the slab being poured, and as time passes, the FF numbers actually will decrease, or the slab will have a little bit more of an undulation during the curing time period, which most people call 28 days. That's just something for you to know. So if you are going to have this A slab tested, it needs to be tested within the first 24 hours. When concrete is poured, it is relatively flat to most people. However, the slight undulations in the slab will create random reveal when ground during the polisher's first cut. Therefore, it is extremely important that the highs and the lows are held to a minimum, and that the FF numbers are higher. And again, that will be something listed in the cast-in-place spec, so that you have more uniformity if that is what your customer is desiring. Again, floor flatness, the key here is the grind, okay? So when we're looking at the foundation of polishing process, 100% of the floor must be scratched. Uniform grinding and refining will produce greater reflectivity and durability. Floors will wear more evenly, and there'll be less damage if we're dealing with some sort of more industrial type site. This is a chart that the CPC has put together that will show you the difference, kind of what's needed for flatness numbers, 50s, 45, 35, 25, depending on the amount of aggregate exposure you're interested in. It absolutely would not harm in any way to have a 50 plus for large aggregate exposure. It's just not quite as important. The reason why it's so important in a cream level polish is that if you can imagine the highs being like a knuckle in your hand, and if you rub across something rough, the skin of your hand on that knuckle comes off, but the skin of the hand on your finger does not. Similarly, the top cream of the concrete gets revealed, and when it does, rock will show. So anywhere there's a high, rock would show, and as soon as that high exposes that rock, you're no longer going to be able to go backward to get a cream finish. And this is, again, the Chihuly Art and Glass Museum. And this is a Class A Level 3 gloss. So Class A cut Level 3 gloss. And A is cream. And Level 3 is a polished surface. And this is what we call a hybrid polished concrete finish. Moving forward as we go, you're going to see that all of these different Class A, Level 3, and hybrid are very important when specifying a finish that you're looking for your owner. Definition of polished concrete. Let's get that one out of the way because most people don't even know what it is. The act of changing a floor surface with or without aggregate exposure to achieve a specified gloss level. So why is that important? And what's the most important word in this particular sentence? That word is changing. When the surface is changed, it's changed permanently. It is scratched and we are removing some small or large amount of the surface. Moving forward, you're going to see burnished and coated concrete. Neither one of them do this. The definition of polished concrete is actually changing a floor surface. And it doesn't matter what the gloss level is or the exposure level is, but that the change has happened. Concrete, a microscopic view. Concrete basics. Concrete's made up of liquids, mostly water and possibly some admixtures. Aggregate, which will go fine, which would be like sand. Medium and larger aggregate, which many of us would just call rock. And cement or cement replacement. And some of the cement replacements we are more familiar with over the last couple years are slag, fly ash, that type of thing. Generally speaking, we would promote using cement versus cement replacements. The combination of these ingredients is both unlimited and fairly simple. Depending upon how the concrete is placed and finished will determine what reveals itself when the first cut or grind is performed by the polisher. And you can see if I can get my arrow. I can't seem to move my arrow. All right. You can see basically that the larger aggregate is not located directly at the top of the slab where you're showing the glue and or coatings may be present area. And if we would grind a little deeper, then we would expose a larger rock. The concrete polishing process is basically taking unprocessed concrete, which is the same stuff you walk on in your garage floor in your home, and taking and grinding it, which again, is going to change that surface. There is an application of a densifier product that's used, which is something that we will specify and talk about in section 3 of products and materials. We will take and hone it to a level that will start to have a little bit of reflectivity and polish it up to whatever level shine that you're interested in achieving. So the grinding process, you can see in the second photo to the right, you can see that it actually has left a scratch pattern in the floor, and the machine right next to it is what we call a concrete grinder. That machine is a heavy machine and is used when doing bonded abrasive polished concrete. And as we move along, you'll see that machine and learn that definition. So what's happening is that we're creating the grind here and moving into the polishing. That's what we're using when we're doing a stain protection product. And this is an example of a finished product where you have a nice reflectivity, whereas here you're just starting to get some reflectivity. During that hone stage, you're not going to be seeing clarity, but when you get into the polishing stage, you will then achieve clarity. And the scratch patterns, this is what's really happening microscopically on the surface. You saw that scratch of that large grinding. That's producing large peaks and valleys or cuts in the concrete. As we move along, you can see the honing has basically removed those tops of the peaks from the grind and is replacing it with smaller scratches. And that process continues as the grinding, honing, and polishing happens on a floor. And eventually, the valleys are so frequent that basically a valley is everywhere, and you're going to get closer to mere reflectivity. And that is called maximum refinement. Maximum refinement is one of the terms in the CPC's glossary that is published and on the web. When words that have specific definitions, bonded abrasive polished concrete, grind, hone, polish, densification to rejection, are used in a specification, the possibility of attaining maximum refinement is increased greatly. The term maximum refinement is optional in a specification. I would use it if the owner is highly specific about the cut, the gloss, and the clarity of the finish itself. And you can see, getting maximum refinement, you get a more uniform shine, more abrasion resistant, more wear resistance, you get flatter floors, and flatter floors are safer floors. As discussed earlier, this process does not change the surface permanently. There are different types of finishes to consider when deciding to specify or design around polished concrete. The following slides will define these differences. This particular photo is of a Costco. They wanted a warehouse look with easy to clean floors. And this is just another example of what a burnished polished concrete floor can look like. So you can still achieve a very beautiful floor for a lower cost. Sorry, I'm a little bit hard on the click. The hybrid polished concrete will give you better durability, and it is a multi-step process also. and it does change the surface because it is a combination of using bonded abrasive and some sort of other type of tooling to achieve a specific finish. When you want full clarity, this is not the right type of polished concrete to specify, but if you're simply wanting to get a beautifully looking, good wear, durable floor, this is an excellent option. And here's one more view of a hybrid polished concrete floor. This is really what true polished concrete is, which is bonded abrasive polished concrete. This is going to give you the ultimate durability. This process changes the surface permanently. This is how to achieve the best durability aesthetics no matter what you are looking to achieve. When the words bonded abrasive polished concrete are included in the specification, you can be assured that the bidder will own the proper equipment to accomplish this project. And finally, here's some of the equipment that is used. There are many manufacturers. This is just picturing one. This is a typical polishing machine. The weight ranges from 800 to 1,200 pounds. The photo to the left shows the bottom of the machine, which has multiple rotating heads. On this machine head, the head is moving to the left from the left to the right, and the satellites are rotating from the right to the left. This is called a counter-rotating machine. Or for most of us, we can remember a teacup ride at the fair, and that is what basically is happening underneath that grinder. There are many equipment manufacturers and many metal bonded abrasive tooling options, and the black and the green are two of the metal bonded abrasive options available when doing grinding on concrete. What you're seeing here on the left in the green is a 400 grit diamond that goes into the two pucks below, which are resin tooling. And these are, when you're in your polishing stage, you're going to be using more of a refined diamond. Again, it's not going to cut so deeply if you remember the peaks and valleys from before. And it is taking that top of that grinding valley off and leaving a smaller scratch pattern, and there will be more scratches to get that refinement. Bonded abrasive polished concrete, the only way to achieve Class D or Class C aggregate reveal, and what you're seeing on the right is Class D or large aggregate exposure, is to grind with bonded abrasive diamond tooling. So it's a must to use the words bonded abrasive diamond tooling and equipment in a specification of a project that requires either medium or large aggregate exposure. On the left, you see an example of a machine that's used when grinding very large projects. This is not polished concrete. Can anyone in the audience tell me why this is not polished concrete? I would ask that question to whomever you're talking to, and the answer is because there's no permanent change of the surface. We are coating that surface, and that coating can be removed, and when that coating is removed, the concrete is in the same state that it was before it was coated. Specifying items to consider the function of the floor. Is this industrial, commercial, retail, residential, government? Things like if a floor is going to get UV exposure, it may not be a good idea to use a topical color. Instead, it would be better to use an integral color because topical colors are not very UV stable. Those are things that when you're choosing products in the Section 3 are important to talk to your representatives and the experts that you count on in that particular industry to make sure you're guided in the right direction. An example of that would be a fire station where the doors are left open often. And I've seen numbers of fire stations get a topical color, and there's been a disappointment that the color faded rather rapidly. Another example of that would be sound in a classroom and in a hallway. If you're going to specify polished concrete in both classrooms and hallways in a school, for example, it's vital to get some sort of secondary sound absorption designed into that project. And those are things that when you're speaking with somebody from the CPC or your CPC certified installer doing this project, they can let you know that it would be a good idea to do this. But also it's important that you, again, are coordinating between these different divisions to make sure that the project comes out the way you're looking to have it come out for your owner. The CPC cut categories. So burnished, no significant removal of surface material. Burnishing is applicable to smooth surfaces only, as no significant surface material will be removed. In fact, it's not considered polished concrete at this point. It is burnished polished concrete. Benefits, it takes less time and costs less money. Downside, it is not as decorative of a finish and there's no clarity. Random exposure, this is typical of an existing slab where you're not going to be able to predict the undulation. This can be a beautiful project. It can be very organic looking and it'll be a one-of-a-kind project. Just make sure that all parties understand that the final aggregate reveal will be unpredictable. Cream finish, this is the one that I said needs the highest level of FF numbers, 50 plus on that chart in the blue. Detailed finishing techniques make sure that the surface is tight with cream up at the surface and a uniform finish, not too burned or over troweled. That's going to be directions that we would want to make sure that the concrete contractor have so that when the polisher comes along, they're able to achieve that cream finish that the customer is looking for. And this is just a little bit of fun. Salt and pepper. And that's what we're going to be talking about next in our fine aggregate exposure. So we tend to talk about this as a salt and pepper look, that if you poured salt and pepper on a surface and spread it around, you would get that little speckled sand look. This is the most specified class of aggregate reveal. It provides a beautiful fine aggregate decorative element, allows for great durability due to the reveal of rock, which is that fine aggregate at the surface, and that rock is very durable. It also allows for an increased coefficient of friction, which means that people will be less likely to slip when walking. Class C, medium aggregate exposure. It provides a beautiful medium aggregate decorative element and allows for greater durability due to the reveal of a larger rock at the surface. It is also very durable and will give you, again, an increased slip coefficient due to the fact that you have the grip of where the aggregate ends and the sand and the cement begins. This surface will cost more to produce per square foot than a salt and pepper finish Class B, and as we move forward to a Class D, that will be true as well. The reason why is there just is more grinding needed. You'll see that at times we may actually have to grind off 1/4 of an inch of the surface in order to get to that large rock exposure. This can provide a beautiful coarse aggregate decorative element and allows for very good durability, and some people will choose to do this instead of installing terrazzo. Now we're into different gloss categories, and polished concrete can basically have no gloss and still be considered polished concrete because, again, if we look back at that definition, the surface has changed permanently and we have refined it and leveled it. It can be highly durable and it can be with any level of aggregate reveal. This just happens to be a salt and pepper finish in both pictures. Gloss level 2, honed. That is in the middle of that polishing process, if you remember, where we really have no clarity, but that we are still refining the floor, making it flat and very durable. This often is used in retail because they want the focus of their customers to remain on their products and not on the beauty of the floor. Gloss level 3, polished. It's a design element that can be used in a project, and you will get reflectivity, and that may be important in certain hallways and or areas that they want to kind of have a specific mood introduced. And high gloss finish. This can also be a decorative element, and it will present a clean, crisp image and reputation. Gloss numbers and tools. There are meters to measure or check whether specified levels of gloss have been obtained. This does not have to be a subjective thing. Having said this, all floors and all concrete cannot and will not produce the same level of gloss, clarity, or class of reveal of aggregate. This is what truly makes each slab a work of art and design. This is important because when an architect is talking to the owner, they need to make sure that they get the owner to understand this going in, that the predictability of this is not great. However, the durability, the aesthetics that they're receiving can be extremely desirable. Now we're just going to show you some samples of different classes and levels in projects. This happens to be a Calvin Klein store, retail store. This Class D, large aggregate, level 4, highly polished, was a residence. And Class C, medium aggregate, and a level is a honed level where you're not really seeing crisp reflections. I believe I can't quite tell, this is a hotel or something to that effect. And Class B fine aggregate, level 3 polish. Again, look at that salt and pepper. Performance choices. Use the manufacturer's representatives that you know. Call on the technical departments to provide testing and technical laboratory tests that back their claims. Think about the environment that you are designing for. Specify and plan for the usage and the outcome that will be satisfactory to all. Remember, flatter floors increase traction. Think about dry environments, wet environments. All these things are going to be things you can put into the specification that will ultimately affect the final outcome. An essential element of polished concrete that allows for durability is the concrete densifier. This will be listed again in section 3 in your specification. Densifier is a single component, water-based, zero VOC. It looks and smells like water. It penetrates into the concrete, reacts with the unreacted calcium hydroxide, and forms a calcium silicate hydrate, which basically tells you that the concrete's getting denser. When that occurs, the concrete is also going to have better reflectivity, and when it becomes denser and binds the dust, it will become more durable, making that concrete a densifier and a hardener. That product being used as a densifier hardener will harden and densify concrete. And here's an application of densifier going down on a car dealership. This product will leave no film, can be walked on during installation. The goal is to keep applying product until more product will penetrate into the surface. This is called densification to rejection. There are also products that will allow for stain resistance and repellency and will assist in maintaining that polished concrete surface easier. Microfilm forming, think thin like saran wrap. This puts a continuous layer of protection on the surface that plugs the pores and allows for increased repellency of liquids and makes the concrete easier to clean and maintain. It will also deepen the color of the natural gray concrete or the color if dyed. Impregnators are more like Scotchgard that you spray on your couch. You will not actually see them, and they are not a continuous film. Meeting expectations. The CPC, formerly the CPAA, has trained hundreds of polished concrete contractors to date and is close to kicking off the new online training program. Soon you will be able to list actual training qualifications in the specification, which will ensure that the contractor chosen speaks the same language and understands these words and their definitions that you put into your specification. This is one more way to eliminate variables and meet expectations. These are meters and tools that can help both the contractor and design professionals understand what's happening on the surface. It can help us figure out if we were given hard concrete and how best to grind it open, if they maintained maximum refinement and got clarity, if they achieved a certain gloss level that was specified, or if the floor that they delivered meets a safe standard of slip coefficiency. So it doesn't have to be subjective, and by listing these types of requirements in a specification, you can get a specific result that you're looking for. More variables, options, choices abound. What to expect if we've planned something where 10 days after the concrete is placed, we are going to polish it. Expect to cover the concrete and clean it often during the entire project. No enclosure. Not recommended for topical concrete. Instead, use Integral. These are just examples. If we're polishing prior to interior walls, this may allow for costs per square foot to be reduced and more uniformity because there'll be less edge work. If we polish prior to baseboards and finishes, which is most common, still we can get an excellent finish, but there'll be different things where you're probably going to see some of the edge work. There will be some processing marks. Things will just be a little different. Existing concrete. This surface will be unpredictable. Existing polished floor can have the same durability and other qualities that a new highly specified concrete finish can have. The photo shows patches purposely done in another color, and when close up you can notice that they sparkle. Creativity and uniqueness are benefits of polishing of an existing slab. Specifying summary. These are things that are important to put into your specification. Choose one of the following. Choose a specific cut that's desired, class A through D, or you just want it burnished. Choose a gloss level, ground through highly polished, level 1 through level 4. And choose the densifier after talking to your manufacturer, and the stain protection product after talking to that manufacturer, and maybe color or other products necessary. And be wise on your choices because they will determine how the outcome is. For example, UV from windows and how it could affect a colored topical dye. If there's too much UV or you don't get windows that have a high UV blocking, it may be a better idea to go with integrally colored concrete. Polished concrete is durable. And it's durable in industrial applications and in educational in these categories. It's versatile. We have colors, design. It's shaping different environments within one big area. And it's very beautiful. Great reflectivity and can certainly present a decorative flair. And lastly, now that we're 20 years old, we've actually gotten, some history behind us, and we have projects that are 20 years old. So we're able to now be a proven element, which for years that was the biggest problem. It was prove it. Show me why I should use this product. Again, big creativity here. And this happens to be a Saks Off Fifth retail outlet, and they chose it for high durability. Benefits of polished concrete. Just want to kind of review these. Maintenance is simple and economical and involves cleaning the surface with a manufacturer's recommended cleaner and procedure. Larger square foot or higher traffic areas, I would recommend using an auto scrubber. It scrubs, rinses, and vacuums up in one pass and reduces the amount of labor. This leaves a clean and dry and safe floor for continued use. On smaller or low traffic floors, something as simple as a Swiffer type dust mop can be used to remove surface debris. Your manufacturer's representative can give you a maintenance suggestions that you can put into your specification, or simply we can leave one behind at the end of a job. If a polished floor has been abused and damaged, it can be rejuvenated in much less time and costs much less than the original installation, unlike other flooring. Maintenance of polished concrete is quite low in cost, averaging 5 to 7 cents per square foot per year. No special waxes or strippers required. That concludes the AIA portion of the presentation today. I would be happy to have you stay for a few minutes. I just want to kind of give you an overview of the Concrete Polishing Council and how it can help you moving forward. The Concrete Polishing Council is an industry resource. We encourage you to become a member of the ASCC for full benefits. Annual dues are $290, and you have access to staff engineers, industry experts like myself and our board members, access to position papers, the glossary, the specifications, specification reviews. We have library of webinars on all type of concrete issues. You have access to the actual concrete contractors and network opportunities with other specifiers that are doing polish. Our mission is to provide standards, education, and professional networks for the polished concrete industry. Our vision is that concrete polishing is the most frequently used flooring solution, backed by a set of credible standards, knowledgeable craftsmen, and a thriving professional association. And we would love you to join us. Thank you very much for your time and attention today. The CPC, as well as myself, appreciates your interest in polished concrete. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we conclude today's webinar. We thank you for participating. You may now disconnect.